I'd like to call this meeting of the Urbana City Council to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu?
Yes. Here.
Ms. Hersey?
Here.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Roberts?
Here.
Mr. Colebrook?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mayor Marlin?
Here. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the previous meeting of October 12th and October 26th. Is there a motion?
Okay.
Move to approve.
I'll second it.
Moved by Sharice, seconded by Bill Colebrook. Are any corrections? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu?
Yes.
Ms. Hersey?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Colebrook?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
That motion passes. Any additions to the agenda? I don't believe there are. Next up are presentations and public input. We do have a presentation summary from Sheila Dodd on housing and utility resources, and this will supplement some of the things you heard in the township meeting, and Sheila can bring you up to date on what's been happening on the city's end of things.
Good evening. So as you heard through Danielle's presentation, there is just a lot going on in the community, and it's kind of ever changing. But thankfully, there's a good group of us, Danielle, the county, city of Champaign, social service agencies that are working together to try to provide as much assistance as we can. So I provided an outline of the utility assistance that is available through the LIHEAP program, and probably gave a little more detail than was necessary, but as prepared as people can be when they go to these agencies for assistance, the quicker the assistance is. So if you share this information with others, I wanted you to have as complete information as you could. One side note on the LIHEAP, it can be combined with a program that Ameren has. So LIHEAP will provide up to, I believe it's $1,800 in assistance. And if your arrearage is greater than that, then Ameren can help with one of their programs. So I heard some discussion on the water bills. And according to the most recent update on Ameren's, or Illinois American Water's site, they are providing up to $200 assistance for anyone, regardless of income. And if you are lower income, they will not shut your utilities off. You just need to contact the Illinois American Water Company and let them know what's going on. They have what they call an H2O Help to Others program. That is administered through the Salvation Army in this area. So if you reach out to them or refer people to reach out to them, then they will hopefully keep from getting their water shut off. There are a couple of different housing assistance programs. The city of Urbana has ours that council approved in, I believe in June. We've provided assistance to over 30 families and continue to get applications on this program. All of them that we've received requests from are renters, although it is open to homeowners as well. And then we have a transitional housing program too, that we were kind of leaving our units vacant. They just happened to become vacant about the time that COVID hit, and we wanted to have them available in case police or fire needed them for quarantine, and have talked with them recently, and they were like, you know, we can offer them back out to the community for rental units. So those are now available too. And then we've partnered with the Regional Plan Commission to offer a tenant-based rental assistance program. So if the clients go through our housing assistance program for 3 months and then they continue to need assistance, that program will kick in and help them for month 4 on. So Regional Plan Commission also has a program called their COVID-19 Relief Program. It is again designed to help families with low income, and it helps anyone within Champaign County. And so I would encourage you to reach out to that link at the helpillinoisfamilies.com to start the application program. And then, as Danielle mentioned, the township has housing assistance. The Emergency Solutions Grant, while it's effective starting July 1, we still are waiting our contracts, although I feel like we're very close to getting them. And so the state has said that, we could start accepting applications and moving forward on our program. And that program for her will be called Bridge to Home, and it provides rapid rehousing services to homeless men, women, and families. And then I would just encourage, if you know somebody in the community that needs assistance, to reach out either through the township, Champaign County Regional Plan Commission, or the Grants Management Division, because if we can't provide assistance, we're in close contact with each other so that we can refer people back and forth. And then finally, I listed the immigrant resources that are provided by YMCA. That depends upon the funding source, and I am not as familiar with the programs that they have, but if you reach out to Lalina at the YMCA, she would be able to direct families who need assistance and let them know what resources are available. And then there's always 211 for help with available resources. If you contact them, they can provide up-to-date information on the resources available. So that's just a quick overview.
Jared.
Sheila, when we were in township a minute ago, Danielle was telling us that they ended up paying for somebody who didn't get into LIHEAP because they did not have physical Social Security cards, but in your memo it just says Social Security numbers. Do you know if physical cards or copies of them are necessary to apply for LIHEAP?
I do not. I'm assuming they've done this program a long time, and I'm assuming that if they say they're required, then they're required. The federal guidelines, which funds these programs, are constantly changing, and I require copies of the physical Social Security cards for the programs that the city runs.
I'm just thinking we might maybe want to update that memo to say not just numbers, but physical copies or physical cards are required.
Well, I will confirm with RPC, and then I will do that because that information was taken from their website. So I don't want to misstate anything or correct it. There may be something going on that I'm just not aware of. So I'll check with RPC and then update it.
Okay, thank you.
If necessary. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Sheila?
Good job.
Sharice.
Jared was just talking about a memo that it didn't look like I got the memo.
I don't think the memo is actually in the packet, but it's online because I couldn't find it in the packet either.
Oh.
Okay. Well, I've looked in my, is it online or is it in my email?
It should be online, but I can email it to you too.
I was looking in my email, so that if I can find it online.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
It's connected to the agenda, Sharice, online.
Oh, okay.
You'll see a presentation.
Okie dokie. Thanks.
Mary Alice.
I want to say that this is kind of an example of all these people working behind the scenes. So we have Sheila, we have Township, we have RPC, we have a lot of organizations that have really come together during COVID. And I'm really appreciative of all all of the people that we have in our community who are working so hard to ensure that people have access to the utilities, people have access to housing, food, the bucket brigade that township is doing. So I think it's good. Sheila, I want to call you out specifically because I know that you've been working a lot with these grants, but of course township is doing a lot of hard work with this as well. But I just really think it speaks well for our community in terms of all the resources that we have and all the number of people who are trying to pull everything together for our community. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Sheila, and she'll make sure you each have a copy of these resources, and then please share widely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, next up is public input. I wanted to read instructions before we begin. The public input rules are listed on the agenda for city-sponsored meetings. Member of the public can join meetings either as a Zoom webinar, a telephone participant to make verbal input. This is a time for the council members to listen to the public. Discussion, debate, commentary won't take place during this period. Public comments are limited to 4 minutes per person. Public input will total no more than 1 hour unless shortened or extended by a majority vote of the members present. The meeting chair has the option of giving priority to speakers who wish to comment on specific agenda items upon which a vote will be taken. A person may speak once during the meeting, may not cede time to another person. We ask that you address your comments to the public body as a whole to maintain respect for the process, respect for members of the council, city staff, and general public. The meeting chair, a member of the public body, has the authority to call a speaker out of order for using abusive, harassing, threatening, or defamatory remarks. If the speaker refuses to cease the remarks, the meeting chair may mute the speaker's microphone. We'll ask the speaker to send the remainder of their remarks via email for inclusion in the meeting record. The meeting record closes at adjournment of the meeting. Thank you for helping us conduct respectful and productive meetings. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand. I see Reverend Evelyn Underwood. Dr. Underwood, can you unmute your microphone?
Mute.
Good.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. I think I lowered my hand. Did I lower my hand?
No, it's still up, but if you prefer not to speak, that's fine.
Not at this time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining the meeting. Next up is Alan Max Axelrod.
Good evening, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, we can hear you.
Much appreciated. Can you put the clock up, please? Thank you. So the Illinois Commerce Commission in their September 4th letter to all the corporate utilities mentioned specifically how they were asking them to adopt the winter moratorium conditions early. What we have right now are slightly more expansive than the winter moratorium protections, and the data shows that it's not working. Let me repeat, 6,543 shutoffs from Ameren in 1 week alone. Over 150 shutoffs in Champaign-Urbana in 1 week alone. The winter requirements, as provided by IllinoisLegalAid.org, lists the following things. You must communicate with the utility at least 6 business days before the scheduled shutoff date. That's actually worse than the voluntary moratorium that we have. Second, they cannot ask you to pay more than 10% of the money as a down payment, and you have 4 months to pay what you owe. That is much more restrictive than the COVID protections. You have to tell the government agencies that you need to apply for LIHEAP and you need to follow through. People in this state are eligible for LIHEAP at twice the count data relative to last year. Ameren and ComEd alone amount to over 2 million, when last year there were only 900,000 and change eligible households for LIHEAP. And I want to actually just segue because I've mentioned these details before. So I'm just going to play Julie Pride talking to Carol Ammons on the radio.
Need to understand that if we don't have a mandatory utility shut-off moratorium, these protections are automatic. These social service agencies and government agencies that are already supposed to be doing this are just overwhelmed. They didn't get any additional staff. You know, they have people in isolation and quarantine, and I'm really concerned. We have to keep people housed because we know that if utilities are shut off, often that means a family is going to temporarily move in with another family. And during a time of COVID, that is not something we want.
So the main thing that you have to understand here is that anything less than proactive, full measures is setting us up for failure. In control theory, we have this basic concept called lag time. That is to say, when you want to reach a set point, when you want to reach a desired set of conditions, such as protecting your community, you reacting to the circumstances rather than proactively acting to those circumstances will cause catastrophe. We usually refer to it as a system going unstable, by the way. So the main thing that I want to impress upon you tonight is that anything that you were told about the winter moratorium was done so at best out of naivete and at worst in bad faith, in the same strain as Governor J.B. Pritzker's statement in Champaign a little over a week and a half ago, where he said, I don't have the power to issue a moratorium like that. He has the power to issue a moratorium, but by saying like that, he was able to shift the focus of the discussion to specifically apply to a multi-month long moratorium such as the Illinois Commerce Commission does. This is not a time for word games. This is a time to protect our residents. So I want to also read to you a statement that was sent to the Chicago Tribune because there is a rumor going around about heat protections. It is not too early to address the question, this is in regard to the protections, since moratorium heating requirement ordinances have already taken effect. This is in Chicago. The minimum temperatures are generally set by local ordinance, and to determine what the minimum standards are and when the standards apply, you simply have to contact the municipal offices to which you live. Respect your AFSCME staff's labor and give them the right instructions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Tracy Chong.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Tracy Chong from Urbana. Mayor Marlin, I'm concerned with your poor leadership and decision-making that have resulted in Ward 2 once again being without a representative. You made a wrong decision in appointing Julie Loud to be on City Council. You received multiple letters in support of Christopher Hansen from people who could speak to his passion, involvement, and investment in local government and policing issues, exactly what is needed right now. You received 0 letters of support for Julie Loud. Hansen has demonstrated active engagement in City Council and boards and commissions. Instead, you chose Julie Loud, who, when I suggested
Ms. Chong, this is not a time to discuss a past decision like that, and it's not a time to be talking about Ms. Loud, who has stepped down from the council. Now, is there an issue you wish to discuss?
I'm talking about your decisions.
Then that's not for this
she
night.
listened to
We can
past City
have that
Council
conversation. Jason Liggett, can you mute the speaker? Thank you. Next up is Christopher Hansen.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Christopher Hansen. I live in Urbana. I've been trying to figure out how to fix all the things that went broken under the guidance of Mayor Marlin. And I think a big part of the problem is poor decision-making in regards to hiring and city appointments. It seems like we're constantly hiring people who only know how to work for themselves and their friends in the city and not for the people of Urbana. So let's kind of rewind a bit and look at when Marlin had Preston James running the Civilian Police Review Board. That was riddled with violations and failures on Mr. James' part.
Mr. Hansen, Preston James no longer works for the city. Please keep your comments addressed to issues or topics on the agenda or general items, but you don't need to be attacking or bullying against people who work for the city or former employees.
Okay, I'm about to explain how that's relevant. The issue was that James was a retired Urbana police officer, and having a retired Urbana police officer run the Civilian Police Review Board seems like a conflict of interest. And more to that point, it wasn't just Mr. James who was running the board, it was also Mr. James' wife, Monique James. And so you had a police officer and his wife running our civilian police board, and I wonder if there was a conflict of interest there, and we should maybe be looking at putting more independent staff. And now I see we have Lamont Peppers hired to be the new community engagement coordinator, and he's supposed to be running the Civilian Police Review Board. But my understanding is that he was friends with Preston James, and I'm trying to understand how we expect things to be any different now if we keep assigning these people who are going to follow a path of dishonesty. And
Mr. Hanson, there is no evidence for a path of dishonesty, and I'm going to ask you to finish your comments by sending them in an email. Next up is Aaron Umberger.
Can you hear me?
Are you there, Aaron?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, thank you. Hello, my name is Aaron Umbarger. I live in Champaign. As a means to demonstrate how, this is just a little bit more information about Ameren that I've discovered recently. As a means to demonstrate how Ameren is treating the customers in Illinois, I would like to read a story that someone from Danville sent to me about their experience with the company recently. Quote, Ameren called me saying my service is in danger of being cut off. I told the representative that I have an appointment with Community Action, which is the organization that processes LIHEAP applications in Danville. But he insisted that I needed to schedule a payment plan. I said I could pay some on Thursday when I get paid. He said the 27th. I was driving, so I said Thursday. It was the 27th and okay. Thursday was okay. It was actually the 29th, so they turned it off on the 28th. I called Ameren and explained I have an appointment scheduled with the Community Action and I could pay $150 the next day, Thursday. They said they would not turn it back on until it was paid in full. My Community Action appointment was still 7 days away and they couldn't get me in any quicker even though I was without power. An amazing person paid my bill in full and amazing my power was turned on within 30 minutes of the bill being paid. Why they couldn't turn it on for the 1 day until I got paid, it was ridiculous. I hope my difficulties with Ameren can help someone else not have to go through the same, end quote. All right, so I was told by an Ameren customer service representative a few days ago that the Fresh Start program has ended. That is the program that was it was supplemental for people that qualified for LIHEAP, and that wasn't enough. And it was for people that didn't qualify for LIHEAP. So this means that for those whom which LIHEAP was not enough, and for those, like I said, the only option left for anybody is deferred payment programs through Ameren. The only other option they do have is a program called Cool Neighbors, Warm Friends. However, where other people struggling during a pandemic can donate what's left of their money to a multi-billion-dollar company so that they can give it to those whose power they are threatening to disconnect and presumably write off on their taxes. On their website, they make it clear that this program is, quote, a helping hand, not a handout. To encourage personal responsibility, our program often requires customers to share in the weatherization improvement costs and making matching payments on their energy bills, end quote. So a little bit of tough love, I guess. This program is where the funds from Fresh Start, the program that's ran out, came from, just so you know. Please feel free to verify this with Ameren yourself to make sure this information is correct and up to date. I'm just saying this to remind the council of how little Ameren appears to care about its customers during this time that everyone's struggling, and how important a local moratorium is for folks that are struggling. Please ask you to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Next up is Bo David Barber.
Hi, all. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, thank you. So I wanted to I talked a little bit about this in Cunningham Township, but I wanted to continue talking about Ameren shutoffs. So like I said, in Cunningham Township, there was about over 200 disconnect notices in Champaign County, about 100 of them being within the city limits of Urbana. Like I said, we can't really gamble on whether these folks were able to pay their bill or not, because if they get their power disconnected, like Daniel Chenoweth and Julie Pride pointed out from the Champaign-Urbana Public Health District, if they have to then find shelter with somebody else and double or triple up in some household during a pandemic that spreads like wildfire, we have a very, very bad situation on our hands here. And we can only do so much. Like our ragtag team of volunteers and activists going around and talking door to door, calling people, I'm trying my best to do what I can. The cold hard truth is though, is that I will not get everybody. And there's already people who have had their power shut off, had their utilities shut off. I mean, heck, I even learned from one person today that there was a woman in Urbana who had her American Illinois water disconnected her water. Fortunately, she was able to get aid because of another person, like that one person in Danville that Aaron Umbarger had mentioned, so that she could get her water back. But the problem is that not everybody has the finances to be able to offer such immediate charity. Cunningham Township is trying their best too, and they have, like Danielle said, have put in several people hours into this, but it's not going to be enough. There will be people who get their utilities disconnected, and during a pandemic, this is just not the time to have this. It's not ever the time to have this, but especially not during a pandemic. So while I thank everyone and all the organizers for their labor and their solidarity, we need more than that right now. I appreciate what you've done, Mayor Marlin, with approaching Governor J.B. Pritzker with the resolution. And I continue to ask everyone on council to push him on this, because the more people that we have pushing him on this, the more he will have to listen. And now that we have the mayors of Urbana and Champaign signed on to that one letter that Julie Pride had drafted, that is a very powerful statement coming from one of the most prestigious, I don't want to say biggest cities downstate of Chicago. That being said, we can't wait on him to try and solve this problem for us. We need him to enact a mandatory moratorium. But the one thing that you can do to help your constituents greatly right now is to include the emergency ordinance that Champaign has in Urbana's emergency ordinance. And that is Champaign's Municipal Code, Chapter 12, Section 39, Part 26, which states that the city government can require the continuation of utility services for those who live in the city of Champaign, but for this one, it can be the city of Urbana. Section 1239, after the declaration of an emergency, the mayor may, in the interest of public safety and welfare, make any or all of the following orders and provide the following direction. And in Part 26, it says require the continuation, termination, disconnection, or suspension of natural gas, electrical power, water, sewer, communications, or other public utilities or infrastructure. So I please ask that you consider adding that in there, and you can take the reins of leadership compared to everyone in this state and really change a lot of people's lives for the better. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Grace Wilkin.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. My name is Grace Wilkin. I'm an Urbana resident, and I did want to state some of my feelings initially. I feel more intimidated by the manner of people being shut off than the speaker's tone or comments. I consider not speaking because of the way that the mayor cut off previous speakers, but I will because I think it's important. But just seemed interesting, the irony that it was to make people feel comfortable. Just want to state that I don't feel that way. My comments are that I would like to say that I appreciate the work of Danielle and lots of people at the township and many others who are working on addressing issues in our community like homelessness, utility shutoffs, and other really important issues. Unfortunately, many people still slip through the cracks, and we need more investment in these services. Our budgeting our budgeting priorities reflect our values, and I'd like to see more of this in our budgeting and how we can support these things. I'm also wondering if this CURES money, our federal coronavirus relief money, is being used for helping the community or for expanding other things or rearranging our budget. I hope to learn more about this agenda item 5 involving HUD authorizing funds coming in and the mayor having the authority to change the comprehensive plan. I think this plan needs to involve various stakeholders. I don't think I'm understanding this agenda item well, so I'm looking forward to learning more. I'm also wondering if the HUD presentation today said that there was transition housing that was left empty in case police and fire employees needed it for quarantining. That doesn't seem like an appropriate use of housing authority resources to me. I think we need to keep working on housing, food, safety, and support for all of those in our community and how our city can reflect the values that it claims to have. Some other issues, I hope that you continue to pursue measures protecting against utility shutoffs. We need protection from shutoffs and assistance with payments. Also, I hope that we continue to, that we address the issues of blatant racism in our local systems and that you can listen to the public. We have an engaged and valuable community, and I hope that you can listen. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Last speaker is John Kraft.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I would thank Grace Wilkin for her comment. It's funny how you didn't redact her name and other speakers' names for being private information. The reason why I'm saying that is because I recently asked for the names of FOIA requesters who paid funds to the city to receive their requested materials or documents. Kurt Borman denied part of the FOIA request, denied the names, saying they were private information exempt under section 71B, which says private information unless disclosure is required by another provision of this act or state or federal law. So let me talk about another provision or state or federal law. The Illinois Constitution, Article 7, Section 1C, says that reports and records of the obligation, receipt, and use of public funds are public records available for inspection by the public according to law. The Local Records Act, Section 3A, reports and records of the obligations, receipt, and use of public funds are public records available for inspection by the public. In the Freedom of Information Act, Section 2.5, Mr. Kurt Borman denied it under Section 7.1b, but Section 2.5 says all records relating to the obligation, receipt, and use of public funds are public records subject to inspection and copying by the public. And all three of those are required under another provision of the FOIA or a state or federal or court order. And Mayor Marlin, I wish you would do your job and tell Mr. Borman to properly answer that FOIA request. Recently in Hancock County, the judge ruled in our favor when he forced the sheriff to provide the names of people purchasing firearms from the sheriff's sale. Why? Because that is a record pertaining to the receipt of funds to the local government. And the Attorney General, in several opinions, one where a person asked for water bills with names from the village of North Henderson. And the Attorney General said that, records relating to public utility bills are not highly personal. Such records relate to the obligation, receipt, or use of public funds by local government, and therefore are expressly subject to inspection and copying by the public. And later on, they talk about whether names are private information, and the AG referred to Lieber versus Board of Trustees of SIU, a Supreme Court case that said names are neither confidential nor unique. To the contrary, names are basic information, and the Supreme Court concluded where the legislature intended to exempt a person's identity from disclosure, it had done so explicitly. Therefore, by excluding names from the definition of private information, the General Assembly clearly did not intend for names to be exempt. So Mayor Marlin, please direct your attorney to provide the names, or we're going to have to take it another step, and I wish I wouldn't have to. Thanks.
Thank you. Next up is Lena Walker.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Hi, my name is Lena Walker. I'm a resident of Urbana. I just had a couple of quick comments I wanted to make tonight regarding concerns about utility protections in the city of Urbana. I'd like to echo other comments that were made by Bill Barber and others that it's really crucial that the city keeps putting pressure on Governor Pritzker and doing everything that we possibly can to make sure that vulnerable people in our community are being protected, which at this point, they definitely are not, because folks are still getting their utilities shut off. And, I specifically wanted to speak to some concerns I have about leaning too heavily on LIHEAP as a solution for community members that are facing utility shutoffs, because I actually used to work in customer service for a power company. So I don't have a lot of experience on the LIHEAP side of things, but I do have experience of the attitude and workings of utility companies around LIHEAP. And I can tell you that multiple times per day, I had to tell people facing shutoffs that they were going to be unable to get help from LIHEAP, either because they had already received assistance and were not eligible for more, or because they didn't qualify for another reason. And typically when folks are unable to get LIHEAP or that kind of funding, people are going to be instructed to either go to churches or charity organizations for help, or to family and friends that can help them to pay off their balance. And that is often leaned on heavily as a solution for people, and that is just not going to be enough right now. Churches have been closed for the most part, hopefully, to reduce the spread of the virus, but a lot of the charity collection that would normally be going on is not happening. People's families and friends are also going to be struggling. I mean, we're in a serious economic crisis and a serious public health crisis right now. So I just wanted to stress to the council that thinking that LIHEAP is going to be a solution for a lot of people, I really don't think that that's going to be the case. We really need a moratorium on utility shutoffs, and I applaud everything that's been done so far to try to make that happen. And please keep the pressure up, because we got to do something, and we got to do it fast. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is a phone number that ends in 435.
Good evening. Can you hear me? It's Eldris Melinda Carr.
Yes, we can hear you, Eldris Carr.
Good evening, Mayor Marlin and members of the City Council. I'm coming to you as a concerned citizen this evening. You all have done a good job so far in advocating for families who are in crisis. by corresponding with the mayor's office, or not with the mayor's office, but the governor's office. I'm going to speak a little bit about the allowable video gaming terminal permits, and I'm concerned about the families and individuals that I've talked to and who have expressed their frustration with the video gaming terminals and the effects they are having on family members or friends who have been evicted or about to be evicted from their homes, for example, because they have used most or all of their paychecks. Some have families and others may not, but they all have in common an addiction that has gone too far and for too long. Here are some questions and concerns that I have about the proposed ordinance. Will an extra video gaming terminal save someone's job? In other words, do businesses need an extra employee to operate the terminal, or is it self-serve? Are we concerned more about the revenue and the welfare of the businesses, or are we also concerned about the families in the larger community who will be negatively impacted? Is this the best decision for those families who are overextended and struggling to overcome an addiction during a pandemic when people are at risk of having their utilities shut off and being evicted from their homes? Instead of opening the door to more people to join Gamblers Anonymous, we should reduce the risk of more financial hardship on families. Can the city of Urbana be sued if they do not approve this ordinance? If there is no legal ramification, then the city is not obligated legally to pass this ordinance. But in the interest of the protection of the public health, safety, and welfare of the larger community, the city can make the best decision not to pass the ordinance at this time. What other alternatives are in place or can be investigated to help businesses without further burdening disadvantaged persons of the larger community? These are some concerns and questions I have as a citizen at this time, and I pray that the council will consider these issues as you move forward in the vote tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And that looks like ends our public input for tonight. So we'll move on to unfinished business. I don't believe there is any.
Next was ordinance number 2020-11-058, an ordinance authorizing the purchase of certain real estate, 1411 North Lincoln Avenue. For the committee, I'll move approval. And I think Carol Mitten had an update on a question that came up.
Could we get a second first and then?
I'll second it.
Moved by Bill Brown, seconded by Bill Colbert. And Carol?
So there was one question that had come up last week when this item was before you, and it was from Mr. Kraft, and he was asking about our compliance with Section 3.1 of the Public Officer Prohibited Activities Act, which required certain disclosures on the part of the seller of the property. And there is that provision does not apply to home rule municipalities. And so Urbana has never required that statement to be provided, and it was not provided in this case.
Any further discussion? Jared?
I know it was sort of briefly addressed, but I just wanted to get the thoughts on the impetus for the purchase of the property at this time. I don't think we explicitly asked that at the last meeting, and I know you did address that a little bit, Carol. It was from Edgar Garrett, who had sent in a comment about that as to what was our, why we needed to buy it now when it seemed like, there probably isn't competitive, use for it. Probably not going to be purchased by anybody else. We're not trying to get it away from somebody. Could you just go over that for me one more time? Thanks.
Sure, I'd be happy to. The property's been on the market for a number of years, but the fact of the matter is that they have recently been approached. They were approached prior to us approaching them, and they were approached after we had the property under contract from another potential buyer. And I know this because it was confirmed by a broker who was involved. So there is other interest in the property, but for our purposes, we wanted to be able to have a site that was under our control where we could plan the new facility while keeping the existing facility operating. And since we're going to start designing that probably in the next 12 months, we wanted to know what site we were going to be designing for. So that's behind the timing of it.
And then the other piece was, with it being the right location, and I know Chief Laus spoke to that a little bit. One thing that I guess I would suggest going forward, since it's probably after the fact now, but anytime we're going to consider, especially if, just in any situations professionally that I've been in where real estate has been involved and there's a purchase being considered by someone, especially in the instance of, a fire station, which probably can run use from multiple places. It would have been nice to have seen an alternative one, or an alternative two situation, other than here's one option, but we're not going to give you any others that we may have considered. Stuff like that would have been useful for us and for the public to have known a little bit more about why this is the ideal location.
Sharice?
I think that was discussed with Chief Laus because of the location of where the current fire station is, and the area that it serves, is that it allows for response time to be a lot quicker rather than trying to find another location somewhere else south of where the area is. So I think the location, the reason why they wanted that, at least that was my understanding from what he said, is that that particular fire station has served the north side of town, of not just Champaign, of Urbana, but also when in the cases that you needed, Champaign needed assistance, and it helps with all that area.
And I would add, one of the things driving interest in that site in recent months has been the closing of the water company storage lagoons and the transformation of that site into a site that can be developed. So suddenly the property north of the fire station was getting a lot more attention because of what was happening at the property adjacent to it. So that's another reason for moving on it now. Any other comments or questions? Dennis?
Well, also it's pretty convenient because it's on a major street and connects with Bradley Avenue, which is another major route for fast resource access to locations in the community. So, I mean, you don't get too many properties that are located on a major thoroughfare in town that are available and are appropriate for us. So we're taking advantage of something that works, I think, pretty well at this time.
Okay. Jared?
Again, not arguing on the merits of the site, just making a point of alternatives were not proposed, alternatives were not shown. We were just given one option. That's all. Sure. All I'm saying is, in future considerations, that's something I would like to see, is like, oh, hey, well, we've looked at this, or here's a breakdown of available nearby properties that would suit and their costs, et cetera, et cetera. That's all.
Sure.
Thanks.
If no other discussion, will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu?
Yes.
Ms. Hersey?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Colebrook?
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
That motion passes. Bill?
And the last one from last week was ordinance number 2020-11-059, an ordinance amending City Code Chapter 3 to increase a number of allowable video game terminal permits. For the committee, I'll move approval.
And I'll second it.
Moved by Bill Brown, seconded by Bill Colbert. Any discussion?
Didn't the committee send it with no recommendation?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it did send with no recommendation, but in order to get on the floor, I'll move approval.
And I'll second it.
And for the record, this is increasing, currently 5 is the maximum limit, and this would increase it to 6, which is allowed by state law. So, any discussion?
Well, okay. Go ahead, Dennis. You had your hand up.
No, you started talking, and that's fine with me. I can.
No, I take into consideration what Melinda Carr said, because I've had those same, being torn with that actually, and it has become an issue regarding people losing their businesses because of the fact that Champaign does have, and they do allow, 6 video gaming machines. And so people are crossing over to Champaign. And it was something that, it's something that I've had to struggle with regarding people's gambling addictions, because I've had family members that have had gambling addictions. But the other thing that I realized with that in mind is that no matter how we try to help our family members with that, they ultimately make the choices that they're going to make. And if they're not gambling here, and I mean, I've had gambling members, family members that gambled in illegal places because they needed to gamble. And it is an addiction. I don't know if there's any way that we as a city can actually try to encourage more, if there are openings someplace or someplace where Gamblers Anonymous is. I don't know if we can do that, or if we have, if that's available, or how we can manage that. I only know that I'm 6 video games versus 5 video games. They're going to play where they're going to play. And I've really struggled with this decision too. So that's my comment.
Dennis?
Well, I'd actually like to hear other people comment as well, but I guess, the cat's out of the bag as far as local gambling in Urbana. I mean, we've already got video gaming, and some community organizations like, the American Legion Post and others do it to support, I would say, relatively important social services and organization itself. Others are, we know, they're just like businesses, like a dry cleaners or something like that, and they're looking for profit. Well, whether a person's going to have to wait in line or to sit down when they walk in to gamble, I don't think the 6th unit is going to make a significant change in people's habits. I don't want to encourage it, but I don't think that the city can necessarily legislate morals. You know, we don't have a blue law about alcohol sales. You know, in particular here in this community, people can go and buy whatever liquor they want to, but and that can also be an addiction. Where I will draw a line is adding additional locations where video gaming is introduced. I think that's something that the city can rightfully monitor. You know, the fact that we've already got gaming in certain locations and we've approved it, you know, adding another unit probably is not going to make a difference. But there are some bars who are going through difficult times right now. And some bar owners think that this is going to be a significant income for them when they can't sell and people can't go up to the bar currently. So if we think that it's important to support local taverns and those kinds of businesses in our community, which heck, a lot of people would like to go and have a good drink at a bar at this time of COVID restrictions. I don't see too much of a difference here. I don't know. So I guess I'm not real excited about it. I wouldn't promote it generally, but I'll accept it.
Okay. Any other comments? Mary Alice.
I appreciate Dennis's commentary. I think I've been on the fence about this all day today in terms of whether or not how I would vote. I think, Dennis, you've convinced me to abstain rather than vote no. I agree in terms of kind of holding the line in terms of more places that can have gambling. But as you said, the cat is out of the bag. Gambling is legal in the state of Illinois. And having 5 or 6 gaming terminals, I'm not sure how much difference that really makes in one specific location. So that's my 2 cents.
Bill.
Yeah, I looked at some more figures comparing, you know, places that had 5 before and then 6 in Champaign, and the increase from last year to this year compared to Urbana, where they had 5 last year and this year. And it seems to me like the biggest difference was just in the other aspects that went along in that state law that increased the payout, increased the maximum bet per punch of the video game, and increased the jackpot and things like that. Because Urbana's in comparable months, you know, not counting the pandemic months, but in the last 2 months anyway, Urbana's gaming places are doing 20-25% more business, and Champagne's are doing 25-30% more business. So I think maybe the ones that have 6 terminals might be doing another 5 or 10%, but it's not a huge amount. It's not the 20%. The biggest change is the change in state law that allows those other things. There is one at Prospect and Bradley that's just making money hand over fist. I guess hopefully the people can afford to lose $2 million a year there, because it's more than that. It's like 2.5 million. But that's really abnormal. I don't know how they do that with 6 machines. So other than I think I agree that having new locations and making it more convenient is worse than adding 1 video machine to a location. I don't agree with, it's not that we're trying to if we voted no on this, which doesn't sound like we will, it's not that we're trying to legislate morals, and I've never brought that up. There's nothing immoral about gambling. It's not a sin to be poor. It's not a sin to have bills to pay and be offered a magic wand that might pay them. It's exploitation by government and by, and by the video gambling businesses. And so that's the downside of gambling, the legalized gambling. There's downsides to illegal gambling too, because people are going to do it. And then if you don't offer it in your town, people can go next town. So that was all the arguments for allowing it to begin with. But I think we have to be careful about how much it expands, how convenient you make it. So Yeah, one extra video terminal. It's a coin toss to me, but I guess, you know, the only upside is to show that, you know, we want to make a level playing field, maybe with Champaign, some kind of business statement. But I don't think the extra revenue that this would generate for the city would make up the difference for the extra heartache it's going to provide our residents, the extra money that's not going to be spent at local businesses because it'll go into you know, the pockets of the video game suppliers. 35% of it will go to state, and we aren't getting our share from the state for infrastructure projects that this is going to support. At least not in Urbana. A lot of it's going to interstate projects. So Champaign's getting a lot to build, you know, bridges over interstates and redo the I-57, I-74 interchange, but we don't seem to be getting a lot back. So just there's very little upside, very little downside, I think, to one more terminal, but I think we do have to watch out.
Any other comments? Okay. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu,
I abstain.
Ms. Hersey,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
No.
Mr. Roberts, Mr. Roberts,
Right, I know. I'll say yes.
Mr. Colebrook,
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
So we have 4 yeses, 1 no, and 1 abstention, and this motion passes. Reports of special committees. Thank you, Bill, for the report out. I don't think we have any committee reports. Reports of officers. I do want to remind the public that the listening sessions on and Zoom sessions that have been scheduled for getting public input on our use of force policy are this week on November 12th from 1:30 to 3:30 p.m. That's one especially geared toward hearing from young people. And then there's another one on November 12th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. and a session on November 13th from 3 to 5 p.m. The Zoom link and information about these are can be found on the city's homepage. So we invite everyone who has an interest in the use of force policy to please participate in these sessions. Mary Alice.
Are those going to be recorded?
Yes, I hope so. Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Okay, we'll move on to new business. We have appointments to the Urbana Free Library Board. I'm bringing forth 2 appointments. The first is Gloria Yen. She's the director of the New American Welcome Center at the University YMCA. She's been actively involved as an Urbana Free Library patron, former staff member, community partner, and looks forward to raising the visibility of the library through advocacy. She currently serves on the Illinois Department of Human Services Advisory Council, and I would add she has very deep ties and direct links to the immigrant community. Oh, and there's Gloria. Welcome. Second appointment to bring forward is Mark Pelmore, is a 20-year resident of Urbana, an Urbana High School alumni. He's a U.S. Army veteran. He's an entrepreneur and author who's involved in personal and interpersonal portable skill development. He has his commitment to community extends to his volunteer work with First Followers, Not on My Watch, and Ghetto Genius. And I will say we had 14 applicants to the library board. Celeste, did you want to add anything to this?
I'm grateful that we had so many applicants. We have such a strong board, and Gloria and Mark are going to be great additions to the board. It's a great team, and we're really looking forward to continuing to move ahead with our strategic plan and serving the community.
So I'd entertain a motion.
Yeah, okay, I'll do that. Oh,
I'll second.
Okay.
well, okay, and my motion is that we accept the 2 appointments, Gloria Yen and Mark Pelmore, to the library board as offered by the mayor.
Moved
And
by Dennis and seconded by Sharice. Any discussion?
well, Gloria's here. Can she say anything?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I am really honored to be able to serve the community in this capacity. When I graduated from the U of I and actually came back into the community a few years ago, and my first job back in town was in the children's department at the Urbana Free Library. And so it's really neat to kind of see this come back full circle, and I'm really excited to be a part of the work. Thank you.
Thank you for your service. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Miss Wu,
Yes.
Miss Hersey,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mr. Colebrook,
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
That motion passes. Thank you. The next two items, ordinance 2020-11-060, which is an ordinance approving a special use permit for 1111 West Kenyon Road, planned case 2404 SU20, the Vital Skin Dermatology, and then ordinance 2020-11061, an ordinance approving a major variance for the same project at the same location. And that was a ZBA case 2020 MAJ-06. So Marcus Ricci from CD will be presenting this project.
Can you all hear me okay?
Can you speak a little louder?
Yes. Can you, let me see if I can turn up the microphone a little bit. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. As you said, and I'll probably turn off my video just to be a little more stable. This is two cases before the council tonight, a special use permit request and a request for a major variance to allow parking in the required front yard for that special use. I will provide the background information and then go into specifics for the special use permit and ask the council to reach a decision and then proceed with the specifics of the front yard variance, because if the special use permit isn't approved, then there is likely no reason for the front yard variance for that special use permit. David Line and Bob Kapelneck and Caleb Capel and other staff from Vital Skin Dermatology are here to answer questions when you like. I'll share my screen. The proposed dermatology clinic at the site would be treated as a hospital or clinic and require a special use permit in the B3 General Business District. And we'll advance. At its September 24th meeting, the Plan Commission voted unanimously to forward the case to City Council with a recommendation to approve the request as submitted, and staff concur with this recommendation. The 9.5 acre parcel lies on the south side of West Kenyon Road between North Lincoln and Federal Drive. Nearby uses include Campus Inc., Peoria Motor Coach, Holiday Inn Express, and Garden Hotel Urbana, and One Illinois North Apartments. Table 1 in the packet summarizes the current zoning, existing land uses, and future land use designations. Here we see a screenshot of the street view of the property provided by Google. You can see the subject property, and Campus Inc. is off to the west, and One Illinois North is to the south, and to the east is Holiday Inn Express. The zoning for this property and properties to the east is B3 General Business, and to the west is Industrial, Light Industrial Office, and to the south is R4 Medium Density Multifamily Residential. And the future land use of this area is light industrial with regional business to the east and multifamily residential to the south. The proposed special use permit would allow the renovation of about 6,000 square feet of the existing building into a dermatology clinic. And the interior renovations would include 14 examination rooms. Staff believe that the proposed special use permit meets all three of the requirements for a special use permit. The proposed dermatology clinic is conducive to the public convenience at this location due to its proximity to Interstate 74. The proposed clinic would not be injurious or detrimental to the B3 zoning district or to the general public because it would not negatively affect nearby commercial hotel or retail uses and is buffered from the adjacent residential land by open space and trees, and it should not generate a substantial amount of traffic or require any additional infrastructure or services. Finally, the proposed clinic would conform to the regulations and standards of and preserve the essential character of the B3 zoning district. In summary, the conversion of a portion of the existing office building to a dermatology clinic would provide economic benefit to Urbana and meets the criteria required for a special use permit. The findings are summarized in the staff report, and City Council has the options to approve the ordinance with certain conditions and terms or deny the ordinance. And as stated before, on September 24th, the Plan Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of the special use permit with one condition, and staff concurs with this recommendation. And that is the end of the staff report.
Are there any questions for Marcus?
Yeah.
Oh, Dennis, yes.
So Marcus, why is this coming to us at the City Council? Didn't the City Council request that the things from the Planning Commission come to us first in the Committee of the Whole? Have you forgotten that?
I can
No.
address that, Marcus, as I was involved in those conversations. If I remember correctly, the conversations really revolved more around things that were new construction. So the proposal that was put forward suggested that if there was a major addition to an existing building, that should definitely come forward. But this is a reuse of an existing building where typically we want to encourage that reuse so that we don't have vacant buildings. So that's why it's coming directly to council.
Okay, so I'd like to hear from other council members about whether they have concerns about that. And I mean, I would also have to comment that we're having like a major variance coming from the ZBA. And that would be a concern because it's a residential area and there are neighbors that may be affected by that who may not even be aware of these kinds of cases coming before our attention. So having asked the question, I guess I was wondering whether any members of the council are concerned about this in particular, in that it's just a reuse of a building, or do we feel comfortable going forward? I'm not aware that there was necessarily any public comment against it or an emails of concern, but I still think it's worth asking the rest of the council members.
Bill, did you have your hand up?
Yeah. First on the process, I remember those conversations. I do think that, you know, there were some new developments or redevelopments that that really were a big change. I think we were frustrated that hadn't come to Committee of the Whole, but I think as the conversation evolved, we realized that, and we'd talked about, you know, well, could we say anything that wasn't unanimous, say from the Planning Commission or ZBA, go to Committee of the Whole first, and we talked about things like that. But I think it also evolved a little bit so that we realized that even now we have that option to either send it to committee or to send it to the next council meeting. If we want to skip the committee and just want to think about it, we could do that. So we still have options at this point. It's just a matter of discussing it a little bit and figuring out, you know, if there's something we don't know about it, or think that the public should be more aware that there may be more public that would provide input if they were aware of it. So I think as far as the process goes, I'm comfortable with at least considering these now, and then if we decide that it needs more consideration or more public input, we still have options for that. As far as this particular one, the special use, I don't see any problem. I think it's a little strange that hospital uses are special uses in B3, but that's probably something that could be addressed in some future comprehensive plan. But I don't see a problem with this one.
There will be a variance asked for though too.
Yeah, I'll discuss that separately.
Mary Alice and then Sharice.
Yeah, I want to speak a little bit to the special use permits. As Bill had said, that there's, it sounds to me like there's really no way for a hospital or clinics to be granted by right for different business zones. But we have had occasions in which special use permits have garnered a lot of neighborhood inquiry. I'm thinking specifically of the case where the fraternity, a church who had requested a special use permit to reuse that building. And I do feel pretty strongly that special use cases should come before council, before the committee of the whole, before they come to council, because we're going to have a lot of people in different neighborhoods who are going to be feeling like they're going to be put on the line, that this is going to be a final vote when it comes to city council. So specifically with special use permits, I realize we're kind of in a weird situation here with the medical version one here, but in general, special use permits, it's my desire to have those come to committee of the whole first.
Sharice?
I think what caught my eye, because I did go online and look this place up. I didn't know they had already taken residents in the building, and from what I saw online too, they're the corporate offices of Vital Skin, and so you're having a corporation mixed with a medical thing. I wanted to know how that works.
The zoning ordinance does allow multiple uses of a single parcel or a single building by right. And those individual uses are reviewed against the table of uses. So a professional office or a warehouse is permitted by right in the IN1 light industrial office zoning district. So those uses are permitted, and they've started renovating the building for those uses.
Bill Colebrook?
Yeah, and Marcus, in your presentation, you had mentioned that there's going to be, I can't remember your term, but very little traffic is going to be coming to the business. Has the business owner given some sort of estimate of what that traffic volume will look like per hour, per day, et cetera?
So the special use permit only applies to the hospital clinic portion of the use. So that's 6,000 square feet of the 40,000 square foot business. So the answers to the criteria were directed only to the special use portion, which is the 14 examination rooms when compared with the rest of the 40,000 square foot property. This, when compared to the National Council of Teachers of English warehouse property, was deemed by staff to not likely be a larger traffic generator than the existing use. The proposed use did not trigger the requirements for a traffic study.
Thank you.
So is this business going to be an extension of what we already have regarding, because my understanding from what I read is that it's a kind of a dermatology practice collaboration, you know. I mean, I know they do surgeries for skin cancer, and they want to do all of that kind of stuff. But what I just want to understand what the is it a matter of the dermatology department, for example, from Carl or somebody moving into this structure?
As I understand it, and I'll defer to the applicant for more details, the clinic is there to provide services to patients, but also it's there to serve as a model clinic because the professional office portion of the building manages independent dermatology clinics, and this clinic would serve as a model dermatology clinic to show interested clinics how one of their clinics runs. But I'll defer to the applicants for additional details if you like.
Mr. Kapolnik or Mr. Capel wish to speak?
This is Bob Kapelnick.
Kapelnick. Okay.
No problem. Nobody gets that one right. I think Dave Line's online also. Forgive the pun. Dave's with Vital Skin, the corporation itself. I'm their architect. So, Marcus, is Dave on the Zoom meeting?
I don't see Dave's name.
Okay, then I can let me speak a little bit in terms of what the company is. Marcus is correct. We're currently renovating a portion of the building to serve as the corporate offices for Vital Skin Dermatology. Vital Skin is going to be opening dermatology clinics. At first it was going to be regionally, and we're talking about Midwest, but now it's looking like it might even become a national group. So currently we have one under construction in Mattoon, Decatur, Louisville, Chicago, and this has actually happened a lot quicker than was anticipated. But there is a need to have a clinic at the corporate facility because they want one in Urbana, and it just makes sense in terms of sharing the facility, sharing staff. The building itself would be too big just to serve for their corporate offices. So the 6,000 square foot carve out works perfectly to fit as a clinic within the building as a whole. Does that answer the question about the corporation and the structure of it?
Well, kind of. What I was trying to get an idea of is because it said dermatology and aesthetics. My understanding with aesthetics is that that's basically plastic surgery.
Oh, no. It's cosmetic dermatology is Botox, laser treatments, things like that. Some of their facilities will offer cosmetic dermatology in addition to general dermatology. Most of the clinics, including in Urbana, will have rooms that are labeled as procedure rooms, which are primarily there just to perform Mohs surgery, which is the skin cancer surgery. But no, plastic surgery, you'd be looking at getting into more of a medical use as opposed to a business use, which you can classify a clinic like this as a business use. Once you get into surgery, that opens up another can of worms, and they will not be doing that in this facility or any of theirs as far as I know at this point.
So the facility, though, will be used to remove certain carcinomas from the skin and so on and so forth?
Exactly. It's a fairly routine procedure now. You go in, they remove the suspect tissue, they check it to make sure they got it all. If they don't, they keep going until they get it all. It's fairly standard now. That is the standard skin. And I, as an architect, I hate to be talking about that. I wish Dave was online, but it's not intensive surgery.
And so you have locations in Jeffersonville as well?
No, for now, it's, as I said, Mattoon is about to open. Decatur is about to start construction. Louisville is about to start construction. And in Chicago, I believe there's a renovation that they're looking at right now. So
Okay.
this facility, though, in terms of the corporate offices, it's going to employ a substantial amount of people in fairly good, high-paying jobs. Personally, I think it's a boon to the community. And in terms of traffic generation, 14 exam rooms doesn't really generate a lot of vehicular traffic.
Any other questions? Dennis?
Well, I would say that ultimately, I would be very supportive of this. It would certainly bring a nice new business to a building that's been vacated. It's adjacent to the expressway, so it's not abutting a neighborhood. And I would say that the increased potential job opportunity here would be useful, and it's always good to have a regional or a national corporate office in your town to continue to build the business community in our city. So I appreciate you wanting to finding this location being suitable to you. As far as whether it should have come to us sooner or later via the committee of the whole. All right, so I'm not going to send it to committee. I haven't heard anybody who has had adverse feelings about it step forward. Maybe the topic about the variance for parking may have a slightly different direction, but generally I think that this is not going to hurt us, it's going to help us. So unless there's somebody else on council who feels pretty strong about it, I'm willing to make a motion. So I guess I will.
Go ahead.
All right, so I guess I move ordinance number 2020-11-060, an ordinance approving a special use permit at 1111 West Kenyon Road, which is a planning case 2404 SU-20 concerning Vital Skin Dermatology for approval here and now.
I'll second it.
Moved by Dennis, seconded by Bill Colbrook. Further discussion. Jared?
The only comment is just for staff that, I don't know if we have a running general idea list thing, Lori, about stuff that's coming from Plan Commission or from ZBA that goes to council, but maybe we should just review it for special use permits being added to that list.
Right, because several of us have questioned that and expressed concern. So I think it won't hurt to go through that pathway.
But otherwise, I'll support this.
I just wanted to be more knowledgeable about. I'm like looking at the, trying to find something online, and I could not find anything definitive about what Vital Skin. It's like, what are they? And the only thing I could get was that it was some kind of conglomerate of dermatology doctors that is like a physicians group kind of thing. But I guess that's not what it is. I'm not quite sure. I'm sure there'll be some physicians there, but it's not like a physicians group, I suppose.
I'll ask them to answer. I would just remind folks that one thing that you can always do is go back and watch the Plan Commission meeting, and many of the questions that you as council members have are always answered at those meetings, and they're really, really actually useful to watch. So that's another way to get really a good explanation. But would Mr. Kapelnik wish to answer that question? I'm determined to pronounce your name wrong. So.
No, you're fine. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. No, these physicians will be basically employed by Vital Skin. They're not borrowing docs from other practices. These are going to be independent physicians that are combining their practices and going to work for Vital Skin, basically.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Looks like we're ready to vote. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu?
Yes.
Ms. Hersey?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Colebrook?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
That motion passes.
that much of a difference.
I think given, first of all, we've got a number of items left on the agenda. I'm going to ask if we can take a vote on this now. Are you ready to vote? Okay. So would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu,
Yes.
Ms. Hersey,
No.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes, I think I can support this. I think there's been a reasonable case, and I'd say yes.
okay, Mr. Colebrook,
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
That motion passes 5 yeses and with 1 nay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome to Urbana.
Thanks.
We will try to get some employment. I'd like to know the updated employment figures there. And Jared, would you like to move to extend the meeting till 11 p.m.?
And motion to extend the meeting to 11.
Thank you.
Second.
Moved by Jared, seconded by Sharice. Will the clerk please call the roll?
I have a question.
Yeah,
So are we going to be able to get through all of this by 11?
we're going to try.
Okay.
You.
See you on Tuesday.
Ms. Wu,
Yes.
Ms. Hersey,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mr. Colebrook.
Begrudgingly, yes. I get up at 4 a.m.
Oh. Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Okay.
That motion passes. Kat, are you presenting this?
I am. All right. So Jane and Steve Amundsen request a major variance to allow an air conditioning unit to encroach 3 feet into the required 5-foot side yard at 106 East Pennsylvania Avenue. The applicants are here to answer any questions you may have as well. And we've received 3 communications prior to tonight's meeting and the ZBA meeting. All were in favor of the major variance. The Zoning Board of Appeals unanimously recommended to approve the major variance, and staff concurs. Here's a location map of the property. The applicants seek a variance to allow an air conditioning unit to encroach into the required side yard. 106 East Pennsylvania is located on the north side of Pennsylvania Avenue between Broadway Avenue and South Vine Street. The parcel is roughly 0.30 acres, and the lot is 68 feet wide and 193 feet deep. The house was built in 1956, less than 5 feet from the east property line, and it was built without central air conditioning. Here's a zoning map of the property. The site is zoned R2, single family residential. The surrounding properties are also zoned R2 with the exception of Blair Park to the south, which is zoned CRE, Conservation, Recreation, Education. Nearby are the Urbana Middle School, Urbana High School, and Blair Park. And air conditioning units are allowed by right in the R2 zoning district, but they cannot be located in a required yard. Here's a photo of the home.
Kate, is it going to be on the east side or west side of the house?
It will be on the east side.
Thank you.
A major variance is necessary because of the configuration of the lot. The home already encroaches into the required side yard, and there's less than 5 feet of clearance on the east side of the home. The applicants currently have window air conditioning units, but would like to install a whole house system. The proposed air conditioning unit will be 29 inches by 29 inches and will be located on the east side of the house, across from the neighbor's air conditioning unit. The proposed air conditioner will be a newer model that supposedly will generate less noise than older models. And approving the variance would allow the applicants to install an air conditioner 2 feet from the property line. This is a photo of the west side of the house. This is the east side, and the general location for the proposed unit. The east side is the most practical and cost effective for the air conditioner because the driveway and garage are located on the west side of the home, and it would make it difficult to put the air conditioning unit there. There's also there's a deck in the rear yard attached to the house, which makes it impractical to locate the air conditioning unit in the rear yard. And there is a set-in area next to the back porch where the air conditioner could fit. However, it's under a downspout, which would create difficulties with mechanical equipment. This is the site plan for the air conditioning unit. And to summarize, staff found that the case meets all requirements for a major variance. The configuration of the lot and narrow side yard create a practical difficulty. Regardless of where the unit is placed in the east side yard, it would be less than 5 feet from the property line. The unit would also be placed as close to the house as possible, and air conditioning units are allowed in residential zoning districts, and it's common to see them next to houses. Additionally, all 3 neighbors on the east, west, and north sides of the house have submitted letters of support for the major variance, and they were included in your packet. This proposed location is the most reasonable and cost-effective, and that's why staff is supporting it, as well as the fact that it meets all major variance criteria. The Urbana City Council has the following options for the plan case. Approve the ordinance with certain terms and conditions, or deny the ordinance. And at the October 21st, 2020 meeting, the Zoning Board of Appeals voted with 6 ayes and 0 nays to forward the case to the Urbana City Council with a recommendation to approve the request with the following condition: that the air conditioning unit generally conforms to the site plan as shown in Ordinance Attachment A. Staff concurs.
Are there any technical questions for Kat? Is there a motion?
I had a question.
Oh, yes, Dennis.
Was there a discussion of whether the air conditioner should be screened by a fence or something?
There was a discussion about that among staff. What will be required of the air conditioning unit and of any air conditioning unit is that it will meet the noise ordinance requirements for the city. If that were not the case and a screened fence or landscaping would help that, then we would require it to be installed. But as of right now, we don't have a reason to believe that that will be the case.
Okay, thank you.
Can we get a motion? Bill?
I'll move approval of ordinance number 2020-11-062.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Moved by Bill Brown, seconded by Dennis. Further discussion? And we have the homeowner, Jane Admonson, is on the screen.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. It will save us a ton of money, because one thing that Kat didn't say is if we put it in the one place we could on the west side next to the driveway, we would have to run all the piping through our newly finished basement ceiling and ruin all the ceiling drywall going all the way across the basement, because the electrical system is on the other end of the basement, besides being under the downspout. So that's another reason. And I just talked to a neighbor today, and the one that will see the air conditioner, and it's actually going to be across from their air conditioner, and they are perfectly fine with it.
Okay. Are we ready to vote? Mary Alice?
I just wanted to say, I know that Kat had already said that the neighbors had already submitted letters in support of this, but I think the one that stands out the most is the neighbor in which they'll be sharing the, that's right on the east side of the property line, and Joanne Geigner, I believe is her name, who specifically says that, I mean, they would be the property owners that would be most affected by the variance. So for that reason, I'm willing to support this.
Yay. Thank you.
Okay.
I just want to say, I'm 70, and this will be the first time I would ever live in a house with air conditioning, central air conditioning.
Well, we won't deny you that pleasure, perhaps.
All right. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Miss Wu?
Yes.
Miss Hersey?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Colebrook?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
That motion passes. And enjoy that air conditioning. Next up is resolution number 2020-11-056R, which is a resolution approving an amendment to the City of Urbana Consolidated Plan and Annual Action Plan fiscal 2020 to 2021. And I wanted to clarify that this is about the consolidated plan and it's not about the comprehensive plan. There was a misunderstanding there. Sheila.
Hi, good evening. If you remember back in the spring, the city received an allocation from HUD for $294,000, and the funds were supposed to be used to prevent or prepare or respond to COVID-19. That was with CARES Act 1. We received notice through CARES Act 3 that we received an additional $334,000. This amendment will allow us to accept the money and put in our plan. Staff is still working with community leaders to identify programs and identify unmet needs in the community. And then once those are identified, we'll come back to council with policy or program manual, similar to what we did with the small business and rent assistance. So this really just allows us, it's a procedural matter that allows us to accept the grant from HUD.
Is there a motion to get this on the floor?
I'll make that motion. I'll move resolution number 2020-11-056R, a resolution approving an amendment to the City of Urbana Consolidated Plan and Annual Action Plan for FY 2021 be approved.
A second.
Moved by Jared, seconded by Sharice. Any discussion? Mary Alice?
I think there was some public input on this specific one, and just so that the public is aware that all of these plans go through a community input. It goes through, Sheila, what's the name of the board that this goes through, the commission?
The Community Development Commission?
Yeah, the Community Development Commission. So that plan, the Community Development Plan is done, is it every 3 years or every 5 years?
5 years. And then because we received such a large increase in funds, that's why we have to amend it.
Okay. So it comes through every 5 years. It is something that board discusses and talks with community partners. It's my understanding that it's not the mayor who actually determines where those funds are spent. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
You know, we reach out to city leaders and social service agencies to find out where there's gaps in service or unmet needs and then try to use the funds there.
Okay, thank you.
Council makes that determination on what the funds are used for.
Any other questions? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu,
Yes.
Ms. Hersey,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mr. Colebrook,
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
That motion passes. Next up is resolution 2020-11-057R, which is a resolution accepting the Local Cures Economic Support Payment Grant Program from the state of Illinois.
Stephanie's logging on now. Apologies for the delay. So I will just say, this is a grant that we have applied for. We have not yet received it. We are anticipating that notification at any moment. We're bringing it forward now so that we can act on it as soon as it is awarded. Stephanie, if you want to unmute, I just gave the overview. I said we've applied. We haven't gotten it. We're trying to act fast.
That's right. We're going to have a quick turnaround on this if we're awarded, and we hope to receive the word any day now. We've applied for $500,000 through the Cures Economic Support grant from the state, and we've worked to set up an application process where businesses could apply for grants through this, up to a $20,000 maximum grant. And this would be to reimburse businesses for improvements they've made to their property to make it safer for employees and customers due to COVID. So we have a list of expenses, everything from tents to HVAC to heaters to wands for cleaning and anything like that that they've used to enhance their business to make it safer. We're in a little bit of a situation with restaurants closed right now, but hopefully we'll get past that and they'll be able to get open. It will be a quick turnaround. These are for expenses incurred from March 1st through December 31st. Businesses would have to supply receipts to show what they purchased, which we would review and score quickly. And this is a reimbursement program. So the city would reimburse the businesses and then we would receive reimbursement from the state of Illinois. And because of the quick turnaround, we would plan to be requesting that reimbursement from the state by January 30th, 2021. So I'm glad to answer any questions you have. I think I've covered the basics of what we're looking to do to help out.
Jared.
Stephanie, we did get an email from the GM of the Common Ground Food Co-op asking about the 5 million revenue threshold and whether or not that was a state requirement or if that's a City of Urbana requirement, because it would exclude them from applying for it.
Sure, and that is a requirement that we can change. I worked with a couple other communities, Champaign, Rantoul, and the SBDC, and so we have similar programs waiting on this grant. And that threshold was just put in place to try to keep it to locally owned businesses so we could support those, but that amount can be changed if the council so would like to.
And it could just be something as simple as changing it to net revenue. Because it doesn't state, but it's implied gross, not nets. And if it was nets, then that, if you're netting 5 mil, you're doing really well. So
absolutely, if the council wants to do that, we can.
Bill?
Will this be like first come, first served, whoever gets their applications in first, or will it be competitive where, 200,000 might run out? That's all I'm thinking.
Right, $500,000, $20,000 maximum grant. So we could do 25 $20,000 grants, though I wouldn't expect all of them to be for the full $20,000. So we were looking kind of doing a minimum of a $500 grant. Champaign on their grant that's similar, they're doing a $5,000 maximum. We kept in mind that some businesses may have done some major overhaul for HVAC systems to be safer or additions to buildings. So we just wanted that flexibility on the maximum amount. And back to your question, first come, first serve. We are giving priority to those businesses hit hardest, which is the hospitality industry, restaurants and hotels. Then second priority is retail, third professional businesses, and then we're giving points for those that went without any income at all for 30 to 60 days or more than 60 days.
And I think also, Steph, in there was looking at other grants that a business has received so that perhaps we are being more equitable in distribution.
Right, but grants that already received the big business interruption grant are not eligible for this, and that's a state requirement, not something we wrote in.
And you should have all received the list of businesses that have received grants to date from Stephanie today.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions for Stephanie? Mary Alice? Please mute.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Since this is a reimbursement program, that means that businesses would have to sketch out exactly what they want to do. So for example, if they want to buy heaters for outdoor eating, they would have to go ahead and buy them and then get reimbursed, but there's no guarantee that they will qualify for those funds, right, before they send them. Or is there a way that they can work with economic development to make sure that their expenses that they're planning on would be something that would be reimbursable?
Yes, we would work with them. If they haven't already spent money between March and now, those that still are working on a winter plan could go ahead and apply, let us know what they're wanting to do, and make the purchase and turn in receipts by December 31st.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Make the purchase by December 31st. Yeah.
Any other questions? Does anyone want to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I will move resolution number 2020-11057, a resolution accepting the Local Cures Economic Support Payments Grant Program, ES program funding from the state of Illinois for approval.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Dennis. Stephanie?
Do you want that as written or with Dennis or with Jared's suggestion of the net revenue?
I think Jared's suggestion is a great one, so let's include that one.
I'll second that correction.
Okay. And we have the motion with the one change that it's net revenue of $5 million. Okay. Further discussion? Will the clerk please? Oh, Sharice and then Bill.
Stephanie, what is the so there's a cap on it now that if a business nets more than $5 million that they're not qualified?
Correct.
For the funds? Okay.
Correct.
So is this mostly going toward small businesses in Urbana?
Yes.
Okay. So it's not like franchise businesses is what I guess I'm thinking, not like Kentucky.
Right. Right. And that's why that number was kind of put there, because a lot our small businesses don't have a larger corporation that's helping them. And just especially even today, I've had several calls from businesses with the new mitigation in place that are just calling saying we need help.
Okay.
Bill, you had a comment?
Yeah, I guess I don't have a good feeling for that as far as that seems like it would be high for net revenue. That's like profit, right? After all your expenses and pay all your employees, and you make $5 million in profit last year. That doesn't really sound like small business to me, but is there net versus gross, is one easier to administer than the other or to verify?
We weren't making any requirements for financials because of the quick turnaround, but we can check. There's certain things we can check on or we can require as far as that. We could require a balance sheet or tax return, things like that, to make it part of, add that to the application for verification.
Okay. I don't know.
Would that be mitigated by the other materials that were submitted in the application, that you would understand which businesses were most pressing in need, regardless of whether we're talking about net or gross?
You mean in prioritizing who would get the funds?
Right.
I mean, some of the businesses, we probably have an idea of how they would, they will have to self-attest on the application, kind of where they stand, and they'll have to provide what they purchased and the receipts for that to get reimbursed.
Okay.
Jared.
Just as, thinking about it from perspective of small business management and what you're thinking about, even if you were the kind of company that could net that kind of money, like $20,000 is a drop in the bucket of most operational budgets. I mean, you could, if I were even just thinking of Common Ground, because they were the ones who sent something about it, and thinking about what it might cost to put a plexiglass around the checkout registers there, that could easily cover the entire thing. So I mean, there's, I don't know, guys. Yeah, I guess there are some larger companies who, like, if you were netting 5 million, could apply for it, but I don't imagine a lot of people who are in that kind of situation are going to. I think the people who are going to apply for a $20,000 grant really need that money. If you're, I mean, we could change it, into a number of things, but people who are in that ballpark aren't going to be considered or interested in this. It's still going to be very much targeted to smaller businesses who really need it, in my opinion.
I guess I'd be more comfortable with net 2 million. Would you go for that?
Yeah, I don't see why that would be a problem.
I would, as the person who made the motion, I'm happy to change it to 2 million. I was just going to ask you, what would you consider to be a smaller size business?
If you're netting two or less, you're doing really well, and you probably won't apply for this grant. But I think that some people are on that threshold. So,
would you like to revise your motion then?
but yeah, 2 million. I think 2 million is totally fine.
Well, Mary
Sure,
Alice.
I'll revise my motion to net 2 million.
Okay.
Dennis, were you the one who seconded?
Yes,
Yeah,
Dennis.
I did, and I'm accepting that.
Okay, so it's now net 2 million. Quick comment, Sharice?
Well, a question for Stephanie. I just, because we've done these kind of grants before, right? So I guess my question is, on an average, just kind of ballpark from previous applications, what would you say that the small business owner ends up netting?
From the grant?
Yeah, well, from previous grants that have been awarded.
Their financials?
Yeah, people that have applied for them before. Is there an average net that you could say?
Not that I'm aware of. Sheila might have had more information with the CDBG grants she did, but and her grants ended up ranging from like 1,200 up to 10,000, I think.
Yeah, 10,000 was the max, and it was based on number of employees. Set it at a max of 15 employees. So I think there are businesses that would not qualify for that, but it was a way to get at a small business without getting into financials.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? The motion is has been revised to capping this to businesses with a net of $2 million in 2019. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu,
Yes.
Ms. Hersey,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mr. Colebrook,
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
That motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And again, this is an example of the amount of work that goes into administering these grants. So thank you very much, Stephanie, and everyone who helped formulate this one. I would ask that we deal with the two ordinances first before the UBA topic. Could we get a motion to move those two items on the agenda?
Or we could make a motion to bring up the discussion for the UBA at our next meeting. I mean, we're going to run out of time right now.
Yeah, we have a very full agenda next week is what I'm concerned about.
Our next committee,
2
our
weeks
next
from now?
council meeting, 2 weeks from now.
There's I could let Tina Stover speak, but I believe the UBA really would appreciate having movement on this agreement so that they can get reimbursed for all of their expenses from July 1 through now.
Oh, I
so
see.
there is
So-
an extreme need, I believe.
Yes, there is. So this is a discussion item tonight, and the intent was to put it on next week's agenda or 2 weeks from now, Lori.
Or to see if there was an appetite for a quick special council meeting prior to committee next week so that they could get approval and submit receipts right away and get a check.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to move items 8 and 9 ahead of item number 7 for tonight's meeting.
Okay.
I'll second.
Moved by Bill Colebrook, seconded by Jared. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu,
Yes.
Ms. Hersey,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mr. Colebrook,
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion passes. So these two ordinances are basically extensions of emergency orders that have already been in place. The first 2020-11-063 is extending the suspension of the special event permits. And the next one is the extending of the emergency order related to masking, social distancing, and private parties and gatherings. And the only thing I'll say is that you probably are well aware of the rather alarming increase and spread of COVID in the state. Region 6 is now in mitigation. Our positivity rate is at 10.5%, according to the Public Health District today. Champaign County, 7.5%. The governor sent out a message yesterday that the new daily cases are up nearly 380% since October 1st, and the statewide test positivity is up over 180% in the past 5 weeks. Hospitalizations are up as well. And regions 1, 5, 7, and 8 have moved into tier 2 mitigation, which is even more restrictions than what we have in tier 1. So we are entering a very serious, difficult period right now, and I would like, and I have issued the extensions, and I would ask for these to be ratified. Mary Alice.
So the reason we're doing these extensions is because there was an expiration date on the previous emergency orders.
Yeah.
I don't see any expiration date on either of these two. Is it only extended? How long are they extended for?
As the we decided to change it to basically Champaign has similar ordinances, and there's no expiration date on theirs either. Basically, we're extending it till you decide to end it, or do we move out of, let's see how it was worded. You'll have the authority to repeal the ordinance, or I think
that's it.
That's it, yeah.
Which is different than what we did before.
Correct. It just makes it easier to have to, instead of having to keep coming back to extend these and keep track of all these orders and when they expire, we're making it an indefinite extension at this point.
So is there a way, we only have 2 special orders right now, is that right? Total enforcement. We have the special events, and then we have the number of gatherings and the mask. Those are our main.
We've got several others as well.
I'm just trying to think. I can't think of off the top of my head what they are. I think it would be useful for us to just bundle them all together and have a date in which they expire, so they don't fall off the radar for everybody. That's just my opinion. So I'd like to hear what other people have to say. I realize we have 3 minutes left. So I guess I'll make a motion to extend the meeting until 11:15 and hope we don't need that much time.
I'll second that.
Okay, will the clerk please call the roll?
What if I don't really want to call the roll for that?
The word please was used, I think.
Ms. Wu?
Yes.
Ms. Hersey?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Colebrook?
No.
Okay.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Motion passes. Would you like to suggest a date, Mary Alice?
I was thinking the second week of January, get through the holidays. No, you're saying no. I'm open to conversation in terms of, I think it could be longer than 6 weeks, but I don't want it to be 6 months. So somewhere in between there.
Bill, do you have a suggestion?
Well, I just think it'll depend on on what's happening at the state level, the mitigation and the governor's orders. I think special events, I think the group limit now is 25, I think, under the current mitigation. If it goes back up to 50, I'd be willing to reconsider that, but maybe we ought to just leave it up to the council to bring it back, or and maybe make a note that we should bring it back if things change.
We'll be reevaluating. We'll be evaluating this as we go along. It's just so hard to predict at this point. But what people are predicting, it's going to get worse before it gets better. And certainly our numbers locally and statewide are heading in the wrong direction. Which is why we just couldn't pick an end date here. So
I think we could, on that special events, I think you could meet them halfway, basically, if not right now, but if things did go back to say 50 for maximum size, and say special events are allowed if there's no food or beverage involved, and you follow all the the recommendations of the state as far as masking and social distancing outside things, because I do think that you could have safe charity runs and stuff like that at some point. So I think I'll keep my eye on that one anyway.
Therese?
I just want to say that if on some level, Mary Alice, I agree with you as far as having an expiration date, but the thing is that we thought we'd be able to, by Christmas, we'd be able to all gather and be together and do family functions and so on and so forth. And we have so many people in this political environment that are just refusing to, go along so that we can get to that's why our numbers keep going up. And
I will point out, we've got Thanksgiving coming up, the holidays, the students go home, the students are scheduled to come back, I believe, the 4th week in January. So there'll be a lull in January, then the students will be back. Then we'll see the impact of that on the community. So rather than trying to pick a date to coincide with all the holidays and the goings and comings of the students, it was just easier to go with an indefinite on this one.
And we do keep track of and not only that, but the state government keeps track of like what the positivity rate is and how
Absolutely. Yeah.
many people are infected and all that stuff. And I think we could always come back at any date and just say, okay, well, our positivity rates are down and maybe we can, go back on this for a little and see what happens at least,
Right. Mary Alice?
How would people feel about a March 1st date? That gets us through the holidays. It gets us through the students coming back. We have a whole month before the students come back. And then on March 1st, we evaluate whether or not these executive orders continue to be needed.
I'd support that.
Want to make a motion?
Sure. I move that we amend ordinance number 2020-11-063 to include an expiration date of March 1st, 2021.
I'll second the amendment.
Okay.
Do you want to say unless?
I think it would still include all of the. It'd have to include all the rest of the regular expiration language.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to put ordinance 2021-11-063 with a expiration date of March 1st. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu,
Yes.
Ms. Hersey,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mr. Colebrook,
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
That motion passes. Is there a motion for the next one?
Sure.
Dennis.
I move ordinance number 2020-11-064, an ordinance amending a ratification of extension to emergency order number 20-09, continued guidelines concerning numbers of attendees, social distancing, and use of face coverings at parties and other gatherings for approval.
A second.
Would you add to your motion the same language, Dennis?
Expiring March 1st,
2021.
2021.
Okay. And who seconded that?
I did.
Sherry. Okay. Okay. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Wu,
Yes.
Miss Hersey,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mr. Colebrook,
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
That motion passes. Thank you very much. And last is discussion. Stephanie, thank you very much to the UBA for sticking it out this late.
Sure. Tonight I'm bringing to you for discussion the Urbana Business Association 2020-2021 Promotional and Marketing Agreement. In years past, the city has entered into a year-long agreement with UBA to not only promote the community, but to also host festivals, coordinate support and networking activities for businesses, and collaborate with the city and other organizations to promote Greater Urbana. While reviewing the 2021 financials of the UBA, it was determined that the organization was going to be running a very tight budget. In previous years, the UBA has depended greatly on events to earn income. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, as we all know, traditional events were not going to be an option for the organization. The UBA executive director and board creatively developed several new, untried, virtual and socially distanced events with the goal of raising the necessary funding to maintain a balanced budget. Initially, the UBA had hoped to continue hosting the Market in the Square, which is a substantial fundraiser for the organization. But pandemic guidelines for social distancing, requiring vendors be set up a minimum of 30 feet apart and that entrance and exit doors be monitored, caused the group to make the tough decision to cancel the market for this winter season. Yet another hit to their budget. Concerns for the short-term financial viability of the organization led city staff to develop a way to continue to offer services to Urbana businesses by extending an offer of employment to the UBA executive director. As he has accepted the position and will be joining the city on November 16th, he will carry on many of the tasks done previously for the organization and more. Per a conversation with Board President Tina Stover, the UBA intends to move forward with a part-time administrative employee, focusing on goals of developing a business mentorship program to support entrepreneurs and creating a 501c3 foundation so as to be eligible for future grant funding. The proposed agreement is similar to last year's, except for the funding total, which staff recommends be $28,907.50 for half of the year, July 1st through December 31st, 2020. This amount will allow the city to reimburse the UBA for expenditures incurred during that time period per the terms of the agreement. As this item is only a discussion and not an action item, we are seeking comments at this time. We'll then schedule an item for action at a meeting in the near future. And Tina Stover from the UBA is also here if you have questions.
Tina, would you like to say anything?
All right.
I'm trying to gather my strength. I'm very tired at this point, but I know all of you guys are too. So I just want to make it clear. So the money that we, Stephanie and Lori and myself and Darius have come up with, this is all for expenses that have already been incurred, payroll expenses and things that were already agreed on previously. So you're just reimbursing us for half of what was already supposed to be given, kind of. So it's not like anything more is going to happen in December. That contract is going to end on December 31st, 2020, and then there will be no other contracts between yourselves and the UBA. So it's just a finality cleanup thing. Darius is coming to work for you. We're pursuing another avenue so that we can be completely self-sufficient, which should have been done with the board previously all these years, but we didn't have that kind of board then, but we do now. So we're moving toward being self-sufficient away from the city, but also developing programs and stuff on our own that will help businesses in the downtown Urbana area, with maybe some partnership opportunities for the both of us later next year in 2021, after we find out how COVID's going to turn out. So I can't guarantee you that there'll ever be any other events going on. We may totally move away from events and totally go to a more substantial business plan that will benefit businesses more and less on the event side. So there may never be another Sweet Corn Festival, but it had a good run and maybe it's time to move on. So we're looking to be more of an asset to the businesses and business owners of the Urbana, and then partner with the city as well later after we get everything restructured and possibly get grants and funding and everything from the government. Do you have any questions?
Dennis.
It's a brave and new world that you're discussing. The board, I assume, supports this direction. Is that correct, Tina?
Yes, 100%. We've already had an executive board meeting today about it as well. We're just trying to improve upon things that should have been improved upon all these years and just never, I don't know why the previous administration never sought out being more self-sufficient, but there's never any time like the present. So now is the time to pretty much get, whether or not we call ourselves a UBA or whether or not we call ourselves anything later, that will be determined. But we're not trying to be a draining asset on the city any longer. So that is what I'm trying to say. Our contract with you will end on December 31st, and then you don't, and then my understanding is that you want us out of the building on March 31st, 2021. So we are to vacate that space. So we are looking for other alternatives for us to have our office even. That's my understanding.
And we haven't, this doesn't preclude events occurring in downtown Urbana. It would be just seeking other entities who are interested in perhaps in fostering events. But we don't know when events will be considered safe again.
Right, exactly. We don't know where or how or when COVID will take us into the future.
Yeah.
We're all waiting with bated breath to see what the next year will come about. And if we're able to do anything else on those lines and provide any other business events or any other events for the community, we will certainly be in touch. But until that time, we're working on restructuring and we're working on making ourselves more self-sufficient and less reliant on the city for any future funding.
Dennis.
It's a big job, and I can't believe that the community and that the city of Urbana can't support its own business association more thoroughly than what's happening now. But all right, if the city doesn't want to have a business association or support something like that, you're obviously going to be taking the bull by the horns and trying to create something that's going to be offering something different. I mean, even if we didn't have events and it wasn't event oriented, I think that the city should be supporting. It's a business association downtown. I can't believe it's not. But good luck.
Carol, did you want to say anything?
No, I think I'll just let Dennis's comment stand.
Okay. And again, just so folks know, Darius White coming on board will be doing a lot of the functions that he was doing as part of the UBA and supporting a number of efforts in economic development. Jared?
Since it is discussion and we only have a few minutes left, just to be prudent, if there was going to be something brought forward to support giving them the remaining monies that were already proposed, I would be okay with approving that if it came forward.
Yeah, it's very important that we hold up our end of the our obligation. and to reimburse them for the expenses that they have already incurred. So we really need to do that. And Lori, can you remind me, do we have a special meeting scheduled yet?
No, but if we schedule a special meeting next week, and if it's approved, we can cut a check next week and not have to skip Thanksgiving week, meaning that they won't get a check until the beginning of December.
Okay, so we need to do that next week. If the council.
That would be greatly helpful as we are all on a time clock.
Yes, absolutely. Is that the sense of the council? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Okay. Okay, so we will schedule a special meeting as soon as we can, and we'll get that part taken care of.
Okay, and I greatly appreciate all that you have done in the past for the UBA, and we hope that we will be able to be a greater asset to you in the future.
I expect we'll be good partners.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope we emerge from COVID sometime in the next year. It would make it much easier on all of us. Okay.
One more thing, Mayor.
Yes.
Before we make our exodus, the ordinance number 2011-062, we voted on, oh no, it's 063, I'm sorry. We voted on the motions, but we did not take the vote on that actual ordinance. We need to do that.
So that's the emergency extension of the emergency order?
Yeah.
Okay. I missed that vote. Okay. I thought we had the motion.
We did that, but I think it's the amendments that was in there. We voted on the amendments and got all that out the way, but then we didn't go back and hit the ordinance.
Okay. I thought the motion was made with the change with just adding the date. Okay. So we need to vote on ordinance 2020-11063 as amended to expire March 1st, 2021. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, Ms. Wu?
Yes.
Ms. Hersey, I know she is, but she's gone. Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Colebrook?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Thank you. We're done.
Okay. Are we all right on the next ordinance?
Yeah.
Okay.
The other one was fine.
Okay. With no further business before this meeting, we are adjourned. Thank you.